All right, today we're jumping into a huge topic, how to actually build AI agents. We're going to break down how you can create your own using some of the most popular open source frameworks out there right now.
So, have you ever had this brilliant idea for an AI agent, but then you look at all the tools and libraries out there and it's just completely overwhelming? You are not alone. It feels like a maze, doesn't it? Well, today we're going to give you the map.
Okay, first things first, what exactly is an AI agent framework? You know, the easiest way to think about it is like a pre-made chassis for a car. It handles all the complicated, kind of boring stuff. You know, how the engine hooks up to the wheels. This means you get to focus on the fun parts, designing the cool body, picking the color, and deciding what gadgets to put inside. So for AI, you focus on what makes your agent special, not all the low-level plumbing. So here's the plan. First, we'll quickly cover why these frameworks are such a game changer. Then, we're going to dive into 4 different ones: Strands, LangGraph, Google's ADK, and the OpenAI Agents SDK. And you're definitely going to want to stick around for the end, because we're going to uncover this really fascinating common thread that, believe it or not, ties them all together. So what's the big deal here? It's actually super simple. These frameworks let you spend way more time building the cool stuff and a lot less time just setting things up. Instead of wrestling with all that back-end infrastructure, you get to jump right into the intelligent parts of your agent. Let's stick with this idea of Lego kits because it's the perfect analogy, right? Imagine you want to build a spaceship. You could grab a simple kit with just the basic bricks. That's awesome for getting started fast. Or you could get one of those super complex Technic sets, the ones designed for building intricate machines with gears and moving parts. Both build a spaceship, but they give you totally different levels of control for different kinds of projects. Well, we're about to look at the AI version of these kits. Okay, let's open up our first Lego kit, Strands Agents. This is a fantastic place to start if you just want a simple, direct path to getting something built and working. Yeah, Strands is our Get It Done kit. Its whole philosophy is about direct action. You basically say, here's an agent, here are its tools, now go achieve this goal. You don't have to worry about complex flowcharts or state machines. It's perfect for tasks where the agent just needs to figure out the right tool for the job, one step at a time. And the code itself just screams simplicity. I mean, look at this. It's one line. You're creating an agent and you're just handing it a list of tools. And these tools are just functions you've already written, like file read or file write. The agent's whole job is to intelligently decide which of these to use to get the job done. That's it. You've basically given your bot superpowers in a single line of code. Okay. Time for the next kit in our showcase, LangGraph. Now, this one is for when your project gets a little more ambitious and your agent needs to be able to, well, to think in steps. So if Strands was the simple starter kit, LangGraph is the engineer's kit. It lets you build your agent to behave more like a flowchart. You defined every step as a node in a graph. And this is incredibly powerful because it means your agent can handle way more complex logic. It can loop back, it can make decisions like if this happens, go down path A, otherwise go down path B. It's for agents that really need a plan. And building with LangGraph is a very deliberate 4-step process. You can see it right here. First, you define the state. Just think of this as the agent's short-term memory. What does it need to keep track of? Then, you create the graph itself. You add your action steps as nodes, and you draw the lines or edges between them. And finally, you compile it all into a runnable app. It really forces you to think through the logic. And the whole thing really hinges on this one line of code. This is where you lay the entire foundation. By creating a state graph, you're literally building the blueprint for your agent's brain. You're defining the very structure of how it's going to think and remember things as it works through a problem. All right, next up, we've got the Google Agent Development Kit, or ADK. This one brings a slightly different and I think a really powerful architectural pattern to the table. I like to call this one the ecosystem kit. See, Google's ADK is designed with this really clean separation of duties. You've got the agent itself, which holds all the logic. Then there's a runner, whose only job is to execute the tasks. And then you have sessions to manage the whole conversation. This kind of structure is fantastic for building really robust, scalable apps because each part has one specific job to do. And the code makes this super clear. We're back to defining an agent in a single line, which feels a lot like Strands. But notice the key difference. We're not just giving it tools, we're explicitly telling it which AI model to use, in this case, Gemini. We're also giving it really powerful pre-built tools like Google Search. The beautiful part is that the runner handles all the dirty work of actually calling that tool and getting the result back. And for our final showcase, let's take a look at the OpenAI Agents SDK. And as you're about to see, it shares some pretty interesting conceptual DNA with what Google is doing. Yep, you're probably starting to see the pattern here. This is another ecosystem kit. The OpenAI SDK is also built around this core idea of an agent that has the intelligence and the tools, and a runner that manages the execution. This whole agent-runner pattern really seems to be an emerging standard for building these more powerful, stateful agents. And once again, the code tells the whole story. We create our agent, we give it a name like assistant, and we hand it a web search tool. The underlying runner system, which is all provided by the SDK, just takes care of the rest. You get to define the what, and the framework handles the how. Okay, let's just pull all of that together for a second. This table is the perfect aha moment. You've got Strands up top, simple agent plus tools, easy. Then there's LangGraph, for when you need to model your agent like a state machine for complex flows. And then at the bottom, look at that. You can see the pattern so clearly. Both Google and OpenAI have landed on this very powerful agent runner architecture. They are absolutely different Lego kits, but at the end of the day, they all build powerful agents. So we've just looked at 4 pretty different ways to build an agent. They seem pretty distinct, don't they? Well, now for what I think is the most interesting part of this whole thing. What if I told you there's a common language they can all speak when it's time to run? This is the key insight. Despite all their different designs, the simple tool agent, the complex graph, those runner ecosystems, they can all be executed through a totally standardized interface. The big question is, how is that even possible? Well, the answer is in 2 little pieces of code. The first is this import statement. You might have actually noticed it hiding in the code for each of our examples. This Bedrock AgentCore app, it's a runtime library. Think of it like a universal travel adapter. You know, the kind that lets you plug any device into any wall socket anywhere in the world. This library lets any of these agents, no matter how they were built, plug into a standard execution system. And this right here, this is the final magical piece of the puzzle. In Python, this is called a decorator. It's just a way to wrap one function with another. But this specific one, @app.entrypoint, it acts like a universal on switch. It doesn't matter how you built your agent, with Strands, LangGraph, any of them, you just place this one line right above your main function. It's a signal. It tells the Bedrock runtime system, hey, I don't care what's inside. This is where the action starts. It's the shared front door for every single framework. So what's the big takeaway here? The world of AI agent frameworks, it looks diverse, but it's starting to speak a common language. We've seen the simple Get It Done kit, the complex Engineers kit, and those robust ecosystem kits. And while you build them all differently, they can all plug into the same universal socket at the end. That means your choice of framework is just the starting point. The real question is, now that you've seen the toolkits, what are you going to build?